Abstract art, to me, has been the main, very clearly the energy of this century. It's the force of this century, and the strength, abstract or abstracted, it just has. Painting is about the area or size of the canvas you choose and how you relate marks on that area, really, is how we read it, as much as poetry's about words or music's about notes. You put down colour and areas, you can call that drawing or not. Call it painting, and then you're doing area against area of colour. On that area, this chosen area, and the thing has to work. It doesn't only have to work, it has to, it probably has to, one hopes it touches the soul, I think, probably, or something at the end of it. It has to do a lot of more things at the end of the line, but it also does have to work visually in that way. Perhaps surprise, too, and shock and all sorts of things. I mean those areas of colour. I don't mean shock in a other sort of literary way. But I mean within itself. It has to do, it probably sets up moods, it probably sets up poetry. It has to do lots of things, but you still only read it as it's put down with these marks. In July this year, I went to the south of France, and I've never been before, and I can't really do oil paintings in other people's houses. I make such a mess, do thousands of pounds worth of damage. But it's easy to do these in someone else's house, and I suppose I did one a day, really. I don't know if they're any different. The light was so wonderful, and the heat was lovely, and everything was intense. I tried to let different things happen, and perhaps some are a bit different, I'm not really sure the colour's up so very much. And I just sort of let things happen, and I wanted to sort of let the place come out, really, in these. They were these quick things, and I just wanted to work in a different way. They're sort of figurative in a way that they're not usually, because I was doing this. It doesn't mean that one, is or going that way or anything. But something like that actually is cypress trees, for instance, which I don't usually do. And this one, I think, is very much the local landscape. Again, I went to the Picasso Museum in Antibes, and it was a lovely day, and I did this the next day, and it is actually an arch going out into the garden in that wonderful castle that he had in the late 40s. I made up my mind to paint at 14 and couldn't get out of school quick enough, and went to art school at 16, which you can't really do nowadays. I'm very, very excited about getting out and being able to get on with what one really wanted to do. I know what one really gets out of any education probably is time to develop oneself, I suppose, time to look around. I suppose it also never quite comes up to what you expect it to be, and I suppose the things that one was excited about, and the painting one was excited about, it's not necessarily what one's teachers were excited about. There's almost this awful thing, you know, like people always put in catalogues like trained or what art school you went to, and you know, you're not trained and taught really. I mean, you develop and you come across things, and you develop yourself by discovering things, and you develop from friends, I think, really. And I think really even later, friends and working in the AI gallery and different painters one met, and at Corsham, other friends were very important. But I mean, somewhere it's gone on till now. There's a very repressive element to modernism and modern art. Certainly in those days, England was a backwater with painting and modern art. It wasn't with literature. I mean, one's talking about just after the war. One can't say England's a backwater now because one hardly knows what other countries are a forefront. But, I mean, now what you've got is the word, you know, postmodernism, but so it's still no better. I mean, the crazy situation about this is that really ever since the Renaissance, European whole tradition is based on change. I mean, our whole society is based on change. You can just say that art in the 80s was postmodernism, just like a name, but you can't wipe out the kind of enthusiasm for looking for new forms, really, because, I mean, if you've got an enthusiasm about doing that, I mean, somewhere you can only step back to nostalgia and a kind of sentimental feeling for the past. The past can always be used. The past is always there to use very much, but it's there to reuse for how you really want to use it now. Which in a way, one gets into one's own personal sort of feelings of how one uses things, and style. And style's a very funny thing, because style is, on one level, a very, very conscious thing of all your taste, all your faculties for taste and judgment, of all the things you really mean and care about. And then it's a very odd thing, because it's also a completely quirky thing that you can't help. I mean, in the way that if 50 people draw a bottle, they will all draw it differently, and this quirky thing is a very interesting thing, because you know, whatever anybody's about, like, you know, Suzanne or someone, still that quirky thing is in style besides everything else they're about. I like paintings that the colour works with intensity. Intensity is a funny thing. I mean, a pink or a yellow comes up to a black, whereas with tone it doesn't. Intensity is the kind of pitch of colour holding up to another colour. Tone is you know, it ranges from white to black, really, I suppose, in principle. It's to do with weight. But so is intensity, but it's a different sort of weight. And I think in a lot of painting, and a lot of painting that's been taught in England, it's tonal, and it very often comes from thinking of drawing into painting too, so that the white on the page becomes white, and the black on the page becomes, you know, Prussian blue or Van Dyke brown or black. Whereas there's no earthly reason why the dark on the page shouldn't be intense yellow or pink, if you think with intensity. And I think great colour can work this way, and people don't always think this way. So often, I mean, tone can become worse. I mean, it's muddying down, and it's chalking up, and it's not colour. It can certainly be light again. I mean, it can. But still somewhere it's where one really sees colour. And incidentally, black and white is colour too, of course, and can really work the way I'm talking about. I don't really work in bits. I work on the whole. I don't cover the whole, although sometimes I do paint a coloured ground. I work as a whole area, but from then on, when I talk about going over them, I mean, as I don't like them, I start again making more marks, and there is this awful thing that you can really love a bit in a painting. I don't save it, I'm afraid. And the bit often has to go. I would love the idea of keeping. You can actually like a bit in a painting and mean to keep it. And that doesn't always work. And sometimes they can just be changed a bit, but sometimes the whole darn painting goes and again. I mean, and again. It just happens like that, because it sort of seems to have to, as one changes. I'm saying something. But some of it's regrettable. You know, like you try and keep it, and then in the end you change so much around it, it can't stay there. It simply doesn't mean anything anymore. One can sometimes want to do something and you can't do it, and it sort of seems to happen a few years later. That is, I can't explain that area. Or bits of it can happen. But I mean, if you're going to ask me how I'd be painting in 10 years' time, I haven't got a clue. But there are little bits of that sometimes, or you can even try, and it can't, and then suddenly it does get there. This is true. I don't think it's necessarily a joyous thing to do. It's bloody terrifying in a way, some of these things we're getting onto, and yet somewhere it has to be a joyous thing.